Chapter 1, The Cry in Tupelo. January 8, 1935. The winter wind howled outside the modest two-room shotgun house in East Tupelo, Mississippi. Inside, Gladys Presley clutched the side of the bed as her husband, Vernon, hovered nervously nearby. They were waiting for a miracle. Hours earlier, she'd given birth to a stillborn son, Jesse Garin Presley. Now, as dawn crept across the pine-covered hills, a second cry pierced the quiet. It was the cry of Elvis Aaron Presley. Born into poverty, Elvis grew up in the tough years of the Great Depression. Vernon struggled to find steady work. Gladys, fiercely protective of her only living child, worked odd jobs and made sure Elvis never felt the sting of their hardship as deeply as they did. Their home was full of love, and it was music that filled the gaps. As a boy, Elvis was drawn to the soulful sounds of gospel in church and the rhythm of blues drifting from Beale Street in nearby Memphis. His voice, even then, was something different. Gentle and full of yearning, capable of both joy and sorrow. The Presleys moved to Memphis when Elvis was 13, chasing a better life. The big city offered opportunity, and it was there that Elvis found his sound. He graduated from Humes High School, a shy boy with slick-back hair and a guitar slung over his back. Music was more than a dream to him, it was his lifeline. In 1953, Elvis walked into Sun Studio to record a song for his mother. Sam Phillips, the studio owner, heard something in his voice. A year later, Phillips paired him with guitarist Scotty Moore and bassist Bill Black. They recorded That's All Right, and everything changed. The sound was electric, part country, part blues, all raw energy. Teenagers went wild. Parents and critics were scandalized. Elvis shook his hips and broke the mold. From that moment on, he was on a fast track to stardom. Tours, television appearances, and screaming fans followed. By 1956, he was a sensation. His performances were a spectacle. Hips swiveling, voice soaring, eyes smoldering. He starred in films, recorded hit after hit, and became a household name. But fame came with a price. The pressures of superstardom weighed heavily. Elvis was drafted into the army in 1958, just as his mother fell gravely ill. Her death devastated him. In Germany, he met Priscilla Beaulieu. Young, beautiful, and captivated by the man behind the legend, she became his muse. They married in 1967 and had a daughter, Lisa Marie. The 1960s saw his star dim slightly. He made movie after movie, some hits, many forgettable. But in 1968, clad in black leather, he returned to the stage for his legendary comeback special. The King had returned. In the 1970s, Elvis became a Las Vegas icon. His jumpsuit sparkled, his voice deepened, and the crowds never stopped coming. But behind the glitz, he struggled with addiction, loneliness, and the burden of being Elvis Presley. On August 16, 1977, the world stopped. Elvis died at Graceland, his beloved Memphis home. The man who rose from poverty to become the king of rock and roll left behind more than music. He left a legacy, a story of talent, tragedy, love, and legend. His voice still echoes. His story lives on. Chapter 2, Tupelo Roots. Even in the years before Elvis Presley's name echoed across the globe, the soil of Tupelo had begun shaping him. A place of deep poverty and deeper faith, Tupelo's red clay roads and segregated neighborhoods reflected the tensions of the rural South. For a boy like Elvis, those early years would sow both resilience and reverence. Their home at 306 Old Saltillo Road was barely more than a wooden shack, tiny, drafty, and barely standing. But to Elvis, it was where his story began, where his mother's songs kept him warm in winter, and where he first heard the sounds that would stir his soul. Gospel choirs singing from nearby churches, the train whistle echoing across the hills, and the juke joints where blues musicians poured their pain into melody. Vernon Presley, a man of dreams and misfortune, was not always reliable. In 1938, he was jailed for altering a check, desperate to feed his family. Gladys, ever loyal, shouldered the burden. She cleaned houses and sewed clothing to scrape by. Elvis watched closely. His mother's sacrifices etched a powerful image into his heart, that love meant struggle and family meant everything. Elvis was different from the other children, shy, soft-spoken, often lost in thought. He didn't have many friends, but those who knew him described a sweetness, a sensitivity. He loved to sing, and he loved to listen. His first musical awakening came at the Assembly of God Church. The harmonies lifted him higher than any sermon. He would sit on the edge of the pew, eyes closed, swaying gently as voices soared. One of his earliest public performances came at age 10 at the Mississippi-Alabama Fair and Dairy Show. He stood on a wooden crate to reach the microphone and sang Red Foley's Old Shep. He didn't win first place, but he won something deeper, the thrill of performing. The applause. The attention. The first glimmer of what it felt like to be seen. Despite financial hardship, Gladys bought Elvis his first guitar when he turned 11. It cost her $7.75 at Tupelo Hardware. Elvis had wanted a rifle, but she convinced him otherwise. That guitar, made of cheap wood and steel strings, would become his constant companion. At Millam Junior High, Elvis struggled to fit in. He was teased for his long hair and out-of-fashion clothes, often hand-me-downs or homemade. Yet he carried himself with quiet intensity. Teachers noted his politeness. Classmates remembered his kindness. Music remained his refuge. In 1948, as Vernon sought steadier work, the family made a move that would shape Elvis's destiny in Memphis. There, in a city humming with musical electricity, he would begin the slow ascent from anonymity to icon. Chapter 3, Memphis Calling. Memphis in the late 1940s and early 1950s was a city alive with the sound of music. On Beale Street, blues pulsed from every corner, spilling out of smoky clubs and onto the sidewalks. Radio stations played gospel, country, and rhythm and blues. It was a melting pot of styles, and it would become the crucible in which Elvis forged his identity. The Presleys settled into public housing in Lauderdale Courts. Though modest, the apartment had electricity and indoor plumbing, a significant upgrade from Tupelo. Elvis found new rhythms in the city, the hustle of the streets, the cadence of preachers and performers, and the sway of gospel choirs. He soaked it all in. As a teenager, Elvis was still reserved. He wore flashy clothes, pinks and blacks, zoot suits, and slick shoes. He dyed his hair black with shoe polish and grew long sideburns. His look turned heads and raised eyebrows. Classmates either mocked or admired him. But Elvis wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was just being himself. He spent hours in record stores and pawn shops, listening to every record he could afford. He became a fixture at Sun Records, watching other musicians record. Music flowed through him, but he hadn't yet found his moment. That moment would come in 1953, when he paid to cut a private record as a gift for his mother. The receptionist at Sun took note. "What kind of singer are you?" she asked. "I sing all kinds," Elvis replied. Sam Phillips, always on the lookout for a white artist who could sound like a black one, listened. A year later, he called Elvis back. Phillips teamed him with guitarist Scotty Moore and bassist Bill Black. On July 5, 1954, something magic happened. During a break-in session, Elvis began fooling around with "That's All Right." The room caught fire. Phillips knew it immediately. This was the sound. The fusion. The revolution. Dewey Phillips played the song on his radio show the next day. The phones lit up. Listeners demanded to know who the singer was. Many were shocked to learn he was white. Overnight, Elvis became a local sensation. He performed across the South, his stage presence electrifying. He didn't just sing, he moved. He shook. He blurred lines between black and white, country and blues, sacred and profane. The southern air was thick with change, and Elvis rode its currents like a rising storm. The boy from Tupelo had found his voice, and the world was about to hear it. Chapter 4: The Birth of a Star. By 1955, Elvis Presley was no longer just a local curiosity, he was a phenomenon. Sam Phillips, sensing the tidal wave growing around his young star, sold Elvis's contract to RCA Victor for a staggering $35,000, a deal that would go down in music history. RCA wasted no time. In January 1956, Elvis entered the studio in Nashville and recorded Heartbreak Hotel. The song was dark, moody, and haunting, a bold departure from traditional pop. When it hit the airwaves, it shattered expectations. It soared to #1 on the Billboard charts. Television followed. Elvis appeared on the Dorsey Brothers stage show and later the Milton Berle show. His gyrating hips and raw energy sent shockwaves through conservative America. Some called him obscene. Others called him revolutionary. It didn't matter. Elvis was everywhere. His debut album, Elvis Presley, was the first rock and roll album to reach #1. He bought his first mansion in Memphis, Graceland. Fans camped outside, hoping for a glimpse. Inside, Elvis struggled with the growing chaos around him. Colonel Tom Parker, his enigmatic manager, tightened his grip. Parker saw Elvis as more than a musician, he was a product to be marketed. He booked film deals, television specials, and a relentless tour schedule. Elvis agreed, mostly out of loyalty. But the machine was moving faster than he could control. The films began: Love Me Tender, Jailhouse Rock, King Creole. Elvis the actor was born. Critics were skeptical, but audiences swooned. His charisma was undeniable. The box office receipts proved it. By the end of 1956, Elvis was the most talked about performer in America. Teenagers idolized him. Adults feared him. Radio stations couldn't play his songs fast enough. He wasn't just a star. He was a revolution wearing blue suede shoes. Chapter 5: Love Me Tender, Love Me True. Fame had arrived like a thunderclap, and with it came the world spotlight. By 1957, Elvis had become a symbol of rebellion and desire, the cultural lightning rod. The success of his films and records catapulted him beyond music and into the realm of full-fledged icon. Yet for all the fame, Elvis remained, in many ways, a boy tethered to his roots. He was generous to a fault, often giving away cars and jewelry. He kept a close circle of friends, the Memphis Mafia, and still craved his mother's fried peanut butter and banana sandwiches. But the pressure was immense. His image was scrutinized, his movements watched. Fans adored him, but critics sharpened their pens. To some, he was a menace. To others, a messiah. In 1958, the world paused as Elvis received his draft notice. He could have sought special treatment, but instead, he chose to serve. "The army can do anything it wants with me," he said. "I'll go where they send me." He trained at Fort Hood, Texas, before being stationed in Freiburg, Germany. It was there that his life would change in a profound way. At a party, he met a 14-year-old American girl named Priscilla Beaulieu. She was quiet, beautiful, and curious. Elvis was instantly captivated. A deep, if unconventional, romance began. While in Germany, tragedy struck. Gladys Presley, the woman who had been Elvis's anchor and constant comfort, died of heart failure. Elvis was inconsolable. Her death marked the first great fracture in his life. He wept openly at her funeral, collapsing with grief. The boy who had always leaned on his mother was now forced to stand alone. After his discharge in 1960, Elvis returned to a world that had changed, and one in which he was still king. But something inside him had shifted. The swagger remained, but the innocence had faded. The journey from Tupelo to superstardom had taken its toll. Yet through it all, his music endured. And his story, ever deepening, was far from over. Chapter 6, Return to the Spotlight. After 2 years in the army, Elvis came home a changed man. The crew-cut soldier who stepped off the plane in 1960 was more mature, more reserved. The raw, rebellious energy of his early career was still there, but it had been tempered by heartbreak and discipline. America welcomed him back like a hero. Fans lined the tarmac, waving signs. Flashbolts popped like fireworks. His first recording after his return, Stuck on You, soared to #1. He followed it with the album Elvis Is Back, a powerful blend of ballads and rockers. He returned to Hollywood too, fulfilling a contract that would see him star in film after film. Some were successful, GI Blues, Blue Hawaii, but many were formulaic, churned out quickly to capitalize on his fame. Priscilla moved to Graceland in 1963, still a teenager, still caught in the whirlwind of Elvis's world. They lived like newlyweds, though quietly and away from public eyes. In 1967, they married in Las Vegas. The ceremony was brief and heavily managed by Colonel Parker, who knew how to control a media moment. A year later, their daughter, Lisa Marie Presley, was born. Though his family life brought joy, Elvis's career hit a lull. Rock music was evolving, and the Beatles and the Rolling Stones were rewriting the rules. Elvis, once the king of innovation, was now churning out soundtrack songs that felt disconnected from the times. He longed to return to his roots, to the raw emotion of gospel, blues, and soul. In 1968, he got his chance. NBC offered him a Christmas special. Initially, it was meant to be a tame holiday program. But Elvis had other ideas. Dressed in black leather, surrounded by a small audience, he stripped down his songs to their essence. He sang with fire, joked with the crowd, and delivered performances like If I Can Dream that reminded the world why they had fallen in love with him in the first place. The special aired in December 1968. It was a triumph. Critics hailed it as a comeback. Fans rejoiced. The king had returned. Chapter 7, The Vegas Years. With new confidence, Elvis launched into a period of reinvention. In 1969, he signed a residency deal with the newly opened International Hotel in Las Vegas. The shows were extravagant, complete with a full orchestra, backup singers, and karate-inspired stage moves. Elvis wore custom-made jumpsuits adorned with rhinestones and capes. He became larger than life. Audiences came in droves. The showroom sold out night after night. Celebrities lined the front row. Elvis poured his heart into every performance, often doing 2 shows a night, 7 days a week. His voice, richer and more commanding than ever, captivated everyone who heard it. But the pace was punishing. To maintain his energy, Elvis began taking prescription drugs, stimulants to wake up, sedatives to sleep. What started as a means to cope became a growing dependence. Behind the glitz, he was struggling. Still, he continued to record. Songs like Suspicious Minds, In the Ghetto, and Burning Love proved he was still a powerhouse. These weren't just hits, they were emotional testaments to a man trying to stay connected to his soul. He toured across the country, often by private jet. Graceland remained his refuge. He would return there between tours, sometimes for only a day or two, before heading out again. Friends came and went. The Memphis Mafia kept him company, but loneliness crept in. His marriage began to fray. The pressures of fame, long separations, and infidelity took their toll. In 1973, Priscilla left him. It broke his heart. They remained close, united by love for their daughter, but the separation marked another crack in the foundation. Chapter 8, Decline and Farewell. Elvis kept touring, but the sparkle began to fade. His health declined. The once slim figure became bloated. He gained weight, canceled shows, and sometimes forgot lyrics on stage. Rumors swirled. He became a recluse in Graceland, emerging mostly for performances. Still, he had moments of brilliance. In 1973, the Aloha from Hawaii concert was broadcast via satellite to over 1 billion people. It was a technical marvel, and Elvis delivered a strong performance. But behind the scenes, his condition worsened. He was taking more medication, withdrawing from those who loved him. He recorded sporadically. His final albums, Moody Blue and From Elvis Presley Boulevard, Memphis, Tennessee, reflected a man yearning for connection. His voice was still there, but it carried the weight of sorrow. On August 16, 1977, Elvis was found unresponsive in his bathroom at Graceland. Attempts to revive him failed. He was 42. The news spread like wildfire. Fans wept in the streets. Radio stations played his songs around the clock. An entire generation mourned the loss of an icon. Elvis was buried at Graceland beside his beloved mother. Thousands came to pay their respects. Chapter 9, Graceland after Elvis. After Elvis's passing, Graceland transformed from a private sanctuary to a public monument. Lisa Marie Presley, just 9 years old when she lost her father, inherited the estate. At first, it remained closed to the public, but the cost of maintaining the sprawling mansion was immense. By 1982, Priscilla Presley, now managing the estate, made a bold decision. She opened Graceland to the world. Fans flooded the gates, eager to walk the same halls Elvis once did. The mansion was preserved meticulously, from the iconic jungle room to the gold record-filled trophy room. Graceland became a pilgrimage site, one of the most visited homes in America, second only to the White House. Elvis Presley Enterprises was born, growing into a multi-million-dollar operation. His music sales surged. New compilations, unreleased tracks, and documentaries rekindled interest in his legacy. The myth of Elvis only grew stronger with time. Each year on August 16th, thousands gathered for the candlelight vigil outside Graceland. Fans from around the globe held candles and sang his songs in tribute. His presence lingered in the music, in the memories, in the voice that once echoed across the world. Chapter 10, Legacy in Motion. Elvis's influence stretched far beyond his lifetime. Musicians in every genre, from Bruce Springsteen to Bono, cited him as a guiding light. The swagger, the sincerity, the electric performances, they all learned from Elvis. Movies and biographies chronicled his story. In the decades after his death, each generation rediscovered him anew. His songs appeared in commercials, films, and television shows. His image became immortal on t-shirts, murals, even postage stamps. In 1998, he was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame, completing a trifecta that included his Rock and Roll and Gospel Hall of Fame inductions. No other artist had bridged genres the way he did. Technological advances brought him back to the stage in virtual form. A hologram tool was developed, allowing new audiences to experience his live presence. His 1968 comeback special was remastered in high definition. Elvis even had chart-topping hits long after his death, as remix producers breathed new life into classics like The Little Less Conversation. Lisa Marie Presley carried forward his name, launching her own music career. Though her journey was steeped in the weight of her father's legacy, she honored it with dignity and love. Chapter 11: The Man Behind the Legend. Beyond the glitter and fame, Elvis remained a deeply human figure. Friends described him as generous to a fault, often giving away cars, jewelry, and even houses to those in need. He never forgot his humble beginnings in Tupelo. Charities, churches, and fans received his kindness without hesitation. He had his demons, his struggles with addiction, the pressures of fame, the loneliness that accompanied it all. But through it, he remained devoted to his fans, his family, and his music. His daughter, Lisa Marie, once described him as both a king and a man who loved peanut butter sandwiches, comic books, and quiet moments at home. He was a father who read bedtime stories, a son who mourned deeply, and an artist who gave everything to his craft. To understand Elvis is to accept both the myth and the man. Chapter 12: A Voice That Endures. More than 4 decades after his death, Elvis Presley's voice still fills the airwaves. His ballads comfort the broken-hearted. His rock anthems ignite joy. His gospel recordings lift spirits. In a world that changes constantly, Elvis remains a fixed star. His journey from a small-town boy to a global icon offers a timeless reminder of what it means to dream big, to break barriers, and to pour one's soul into their passion. He didn't just sing songs, he lived them. And as long as music plays, the voice of Elvis Presley will echo on. Epilogue: The voice that never left. Elvis Aaron Presley lived a life like no other. He rose from poverty to become a global superstar, changed the face of music, and inspired countless artists across generations. He was a man of contradictions, shy yet flamboyant, generous yet lonely, powerful yet vulnerable. His legacy lives on in his music, in the stories told by those who knew him, and in the endless echoes of his voice. Tourists still flock to Graceland. Tribute artists perform in his memory. His recordings remain timeless. He was, and will always be, the king of rock and roll. And his story will never truly